Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ella, and in this video today we're going to be taking a look at a very interesting part of astrology which has to do with our sexuality, with what turns us on, erotic love and things like this. And for this specific video we are going to be looking at very interesting asteroid Eros. So again, something I want to mention before we get started is, well, first of all, I hope you're 18 plus watching this video. I don't think we're gonna really get into so much of like actual sexual details or something like that. It is mostly psychological what we're going to be taking a look at. And at the same time, I also want to mention that as much as Eros is going to tell you a lot about your sexuality or sexuality of a person you're interested in, just like everything else in astrology, it needs to be looked together in conjunction with what Venus is doing in your chart, what's happening in the 7th house, in the 8th house, in 5th, in 12th, in what's happening with Mars, what's happening with Moon, because all of these things together are going to give us a lot more fuller picture in terms of what's happening in a person's life, in their sexuality, what they turned on, what they are in love with. But I think actually asteroid Eros is somehow, from my research, it is one of these placements which is a little bit of a shortcut to understanding some of even more complex placements in a person's chart. So something I want to briefly mention is that I have about 10 years, almost 10 years of astrology experience. So for about 3 to 4 years before I started doing it more professionally, I was just looking at tons and tons and tons, hundreds of people's charts just for fun of it, because I was so obsessed with astrology. So a lot of the things that I'm going to be mentioning here is something that I've actually observed in person's chart, so it's not necessarily been taken from a teacher or any other source. Of course, I also always read up a lot of the literature on these, people's opinions, people's comments. So altogether, it's basically a combination of all these different things I've extracted from different places, from my own experience, and I really hope that this analysis is going to help you hopefully understand your own sexuality better, and also sexuality of your partner. Before we get started, if you are interested to follow me on Instagram, where I also post a lot more astrological knowledge and different things, it's Astro and Wonderland. Follow me there. I don't know when I'm posting this, probably we're not going to start our astrology class yet, but if by the time you're checking this video out, it's going to be posted. The link is going to be in the description box. The links to everything that we're currently providing, whether it's merchandise, classes, private readings, everything is in the description box. So check it out down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. And once again, it is something where, Eros is a very interesting placement, but like I said before, we need to also take a look at what else is happening in the person's chart. We're going to be adding more and more videos to kind of give you hopefully a more complete picture in terms of what's happening in your person's chart. And anyway guys, let's get started. I'm super excited. There is going to be timestamp provided down below in the description box and also in the comments below this video. Something I do want to mention is that asteroid Eros can work a little bit differently in men's chart versus woman's chart. So there's going to be a separate timestamp for, let's say, if you are a woman who has Eros in Aries, there's going to be a timestamp for that. Now, let's say if you're a woman who is interested in a man who has Eros in Scorpio, there's going to be a timestamp for that. So all the 12 signs are going to have both timestamps for men and women. So find yours and check it out. Once again, Eros is an asteroid which shows what are we turned on by, what are we falling in love with as well, because it is more about this erotic love, what turns us on, how to seduce somebody maybe even, what is the way to approach them. What are the kinky fantasies, maybe how kinky maybe even a person is. So all of this information is going to be, I'm going to try to provide this in this video. Again, use it wisely. And anyway, I don't really have anything else to add for this intro. Please try to keep an open mind. As you can see in this video, there's all kind of sexual archetypes. Different people are turned on by different things. So nothing is really right or wrong. It's more like we're all different. Some people are more compatible, some people are less compatible. I feel like the key is to keep an open mind. I find it always fascinating just learning about different archetypes of people, because even if I don't agree with someone over something, I'm always like, oh, this is an interesting perspective. So try to keep an open mind also while watching this video. And again, timestamps are going to be provided down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you at a timestamp. I hope you enjoyed this video. Okay, so if you are a woman with an Eros in the sign of Aries, or let's say if you're a man interested in a woman whose Eros is in a sign of Aries, what does it mean? So a woman with the Eros, with the placement of Eros in the sign of Aries, first of all, she is never going to be into a guy who is too shy, who is too indecisive. We all know there is these guys, they're super nice, right? They are like, they seem to know and say the right thing, but then let's say you guys go out on a date and he's indecisive, he's unsure about the restaurant, he's kind of like a little bit clumsy. Again, nothing wrong with these guys, but with this placement, I feel like a woman with this placement is not gonna really like this. I feel like it could be a turn off if the guy is kind of indecisive and is asking her, like, let's say, oh, which restaurant you want to go and stuff like that. She sometimes may not like this. Maybe it's a bit of an extreme example, but I feel like a woman with an asteroid Eros in a sign of Aries wants a guy who just kind of takes charge, is traditional Aries archetype. Someone who maybe is even a little bit, I don't know if macho is the right word, but you know, this very strong masculine energy. A man who knows what he wants, the guy who, you know, calls her and says, hey, tomorrow we are going to eat dinner. You know, of course, it's nice to ask if she is available, but someone who just has a little bit of this straightforwardness. Like, if he likes her, he's just gonna be like, hey, I like you, let's date, or let's go on a date, or whatever. Now, when it comes already to, you know, to a more like sensual, sexual part of a relationship, this is also a woman who kind of wants, not kind of, but wants a man also to be the first to reach out to kiss her or like to grab her in some way. So I feel like what's important to understand here, because, you know, I want to make sure I'm painting the correct picture, is that this is the woman who wants a very traditionally masculine, like almost like, I don't know if army guy, to be honest, is a good example, because obviously there's all kind of different army guys, but you know, this guy who just like is strong, but at the same time you need to respect her, because if you're gonna disrespect her, you're gonna really see the rage. And this is the woman who is very capable of, you know, raging and just being angry and really putting your back in your place. So you kind of need to find that balance between being very masculine, very straightforward, but at the same time giving her just enough space, you know, to feel respected. So this is a woman who needs to feel respected. So do not degrade her. This is not the correct way. I mean, you shouldn't degrade any woman, but I think sometimes when we talk about this kind of very strong masculinity, it's very kind of like unclear, right? Where is he just masculine, takes charge, and where it's like too much. So be respectful, always be respectful of her space, whether she has, you know, asteroid Eros in Aries or not. So I guess be nice, but just not too like nice where you kind of, you know, you don't want her to mistake you for like a pushover. This is also the woman who values passion. So if you're gonna show her your passionate side, and not maybe even try to like hide it or anything, like it's okay, I think, for this woman, for a man who's pursuing this woman, to show how passionate he is about her, to show, you know, that he has strong attraction to her. I don't think this woman is gonna feel like it's too much or something like that. Just be straightforward with her, because she's very passionate herself. This is the woman who, you know, just kind of, I think most of the time, since, you know, Aries is also ruled by Mars, which is the planet that is connected to sex and is connected to, you know, straightforward action. With Eris and Aries, I think this woman should be most of the time very comfortable with her own sexual side, should be most likely be very, you know, I don't think that this is the kind of woman who necessarily is going to like jump into bed with someone right away, but I feel like this is the kind of woman who, if she feels sexually attracted to someone, she's going to be more than comfortable to, you know, take things to another level, to explore what the relationship could be like, you know, in bedroom and things like this. This is not some kind of person necessarily who wants to first be in committed relationship and then start exploring the sexual side of things. I think if this woman feels attracted and if she wants it, she's gonna go for it, whether they're in a relationship maybe or not. And something I think with Eris in Aries, whether man or woman, these are the people who are very connected, their sexuality is very connected to, you know, to the things they see. Like, so this is someone who can be sometimes a little bit in your face even when they explore their sexuality. Maybe they dress a little bit even provocatively, but they're not, how to say, they're very straightforward with it. They're not really hiding it. It's not like subtle. Sometimes it can be very much in your face. Now, if you're interested in a man who has Eris in a sign of Aries, this is very interesting. And something that I want to tell you right away is that sex is going to be a very important, very, very important for this man. I think it's important for all men, but if, let's say, you guys, like, even if there's some bit of feelings, but if you guys are not compatible in bed, and if this man doesn't feel satisfied in some cases, again, I don't want to generalize, because, you know, we do need to still see what Mars is doing, what 8th house placement is doing, what 5th house, 7th house, all these things in astrology chart are doing. But what I've noticed is that sometimes when a man has Eris in a sign of Aries, if, let's say, he's not satisfied sexually in a relationship, even if he cares about a woman, he can be either prone to cheating, or he could leave her. So it is like sexual side of things in a relationship is going to be extremely important with this man. He wants to feel like he's a hero. He wants to feel like he can, you know, really I don't want to say necessarily save you, but he wants to feel like you are just excited about the things he's capable of doing, whether, you know, in the sexual side of things in a relationship or just overall with how he is. You know, he wants to hear that, wow, you're so strong, you're this, you're that. So it's kind of like, again, since it's Aries and it's a very traditional masculine sign, masculine planet rules Aries, I think it's sort of like all the things you can think of, very like traditional masculinity, maybe, you know, very like Mars even planet. It really applies to the placement of Eros in the sign of Aries. This is the kind of guy who will want to maybe take you on a ride on a bike, on a fast ride, and he will like the excitement of you, let's say, grabbing, you know, his arms or something like that. And that a little bit of dangerous quality, a little bit of this playful dangerous quality is going to be a huge turn on for somebody who has Eros in the sign of Aries. If you want to seduce him a little bit more in a physical way, I find that, you know, touching head or like head massage or something like that, ears even, is the very, you know, what they call it, the zone, what do you call this, erogenous zone or something like that for Eros in the sign of Aries. At the same time, what's also very interesting about this placement is that some men with the Eros and Aries, again, other aspects of the birth chart need to also agree on that, may even like things like vulgar words and bad, like something a little bit dirty, something a little bit even nasty. So again, they might be totally gentlemen on the surface, but we all know there is this kind of people who you think they're like super conservative, whatever, and then, you know, something so crazy, right, comes out. This could be because of Eros and Aries. Like, they might like to be talked dirty and bad, like some kind of, not even dirty, it's like about almost like vulgar, like. So they might like things to be a little bit even more conservative on the surface. Let's say if there's other aspects in their chart that show that, but once you get to bed with them, it's like there is some stuff they do that is just like crazy, you know. So it might be not for everyone. So let's say if your Aries is in a sign like Cancer, which we're going to get into in a moment, you might not be you might not be very comfortable with these things. So it's important to know that, because when we understand our own kind of like sexual needs and what we want better, and also understand that of another person, we can avoid a lot of clashes, because sometimes, you know, it clicks, but other times, you know, that's why people have boundaries and all kind of safe words and all kind of whatever things, right? It doesn't always work together. Again, something that I'm going to keep repeating probably is that Eros is not everything. It's a part that's very interesting. I think it gives a lot of specifics of what can turn a person on, but we need to look at, as anything in astrology, we need to look at it in conjunction with everything else that's taking place in the astrology chart and not just separately. But, you know, I'm hoping that this video is going to give you a little bit more information, and maybe some of you are going to learn about this placement for the very first time. Now, something else I also want to say about a man who has Eros in the sign of Aries. It is very important, ladies, whoever's watching this, that you let him do the pursuing, because this is the kind of guy who wants to pursue a woman. He wants to be a hero. Don't forget that. He wants to be that. I don't know why right now I'm not into those older movies. I'm not into Tom Cruise, to be honest, at all. But you know, this Top Gun, Tom Cruise, I don't know how that was, whatever, they show me the image, you know, my guides, for those who don't know who they are, show me the image of that. So there's something about, I don't know, about this. I'm thinking like, this guy who is just very strong, he can fly a plane, blah blah blah, all of this, and he wants to take charge. So let him. If you're going to be pursuing him, or maybe being more masculine, that can be a turn off for this type of man. He wants, again, to be not necessarily even a hunter, but he wants to be that warrior who goes, you know, and like saves the princess or something like that. And also something still that I want to mention here is that, again, this guy could be into a little bit more aggressive type of lovemaking, maybe not the most sensitive, again, unless there's other aspects in the chart that show something else. But I noticed that with this type of people, there is something about liking that aggression, liking that, you know, a little bit more hardcore type of things. So it is, I think, very helpful and very good to know, so that you can understand this person, let's say whether it's your boyfriend or someone you're interested in, what they're into, a lot more. Now let's talk about Eros in the sign of Taurus. Let's start with ladies who have Eros in the sign of Taurus. So this is the kind of woman, could be very different that Eros in the sign of Aries. She actually likes things like commitment, loyalty. She likes, you know, she's not the kind of person who's just gonna, you know, jump into something where someone, even if she feels attracted. She wants more of this old school, old-fashioned seduction. She wants to be taken to, you know, to the nature, nice countryside house, nice dinner, candlelight, all of the things you would think about Taurus is, you know, is very important here. This is the kind of woman who values a man who is maybe even a little bit more affluent. Like if you can take her, like if you can afford this, if you can take her to, I don't know, weekend trip to Paris, or you know, just a getaway maybe in a small either beach little house, or I don't know, countryside house and something like that. This is the kind of woman who is gonna really value that, and it can be quite a turn on. So it's not because she's like a gold digger or anything like that. There is something about this. Don't forget, Taurus rules all of the material blessings of life. Taurus is all about material pleasures of life. So it's just that sign, and Aries being in the sign allows this kind of woman to appreciate it more. And yes, it's quite a turn on because she's turned on by stability as well. I would say don't do anything too weird or too aggressive, at least in the beginning. Try to be, you know, I think of Taurus, Aries and Taurus as this, like, a little bit more conservative, yes. Like, she's the kind of person I think who would even like to watch some kind of old classic Hollywood movie, I don't know, Breakfast at Tiffany's, something like that. Dress very well if you're a man interested in this woman. Smell good. Oh my god, I don't have Aries and Taurus, but I'm a Taurus and I have 7th house cusp in Taurus. I cannot stress enough how important it is for ladies who have any kind of placement really in a Taurus that pertains to the kind of partner they're interested in, how important it is to smell good, to dress well, to just really have this very well put together look. Aries and Taurus woman is really gonna appreciate that, so thank me later. I also think that it's very helpful to know, if you're interested in a lady who has Aries in the sign of Taurus, that if you're more of a cheap guy, this might not be the woman for you. I'm not saying that, again, she's not like necessarily into like money or anything like that. She can be actually very laid back, but there is something about a woman who has Aries in the sign of Taurus where she will really appreciate if, let's say, for the first date, you're not just gonna, let's say, you know, when the restaurant, they ask you if you want to go tap or bottled water. She will appreciate a nice bottled water. She will appreciate a nicer brand of wine. She will appreciate a nicer restaurant to start with, just because it will show her, you know, that she can feel more safe. Because again, Aries is what turns us on, and Taurus has to do with this comfort, stability, and security. So for her being in that secure environment, for her being in that environment where she feels very well taken care of, is what's going to help her open up, and that's what's going to help her feel much better. And by that, if she's open and if she feels much better, she will be much more inclined to trust you and, you know, maybe even see if this can go any further. I would say that be respectful, be very respectful, but be confident. Don't be like too sensitive or anything like that. I think this is the kind of woman who likes a confident man. She likes the man who knows what he's doing. I'm thinking of this, you know, like waspy conservative guy, but it doesn't have to be. I'm just thinking of it like as an archetype. If you're taking this kind of woman to a restaurant, make sure also to, you know, I don't know, like order some very decadent dessert. She's gonna appreciate it once again. She can be very loving, this kind of woman, and very even passionate, very sensual, but she can also be very distant. So it's almost like, you know, like you gotta rub this type of lady in the right way, because she wants to be pampered at the end of the day. She wants to feel valued. Take her to a nice spa, I don't know, buy her something really nice. Again, it doesn't have to be expensive, but I have to be honest, if you are, let's say, the kind of guy who wants to split a bill 50-50, things like this, I feel like any woman with a strong Taurus in her chart might feel not the best about this. I feel some women just maybe kind of force themselves into thinking that it's normal, but I think when it comes to being more conservative, Taurus is the placement that I think still values the good old-fashioned manners, man opening doors, things like this, and, you know, is like, this is the keeper of, you know, old-fashioned, how to say, values or something like that. So, yep. Of course, for Taurus, neck is very important. Anything with sensuality, fabric, silk, nature, natural smells, you know, touching skin, massages, oils, all of these things is also what turns someone with Aries and Taurus on. Now, if you are a lady who is interested in a man, or if you are a man even interested in a man with Aries and the sign of Taurus, what do we need to know about a man who has Aries and the sign of Taurus? First of all, the good news is that this is a man who is also, even though in a different way than Aries and Aries men, this is still a man who is not too difficult. He's not like too crazy or anything like that. He's quite simple. He likes quality, he likes stability, just like his counterpart of Eros in a sign of Taurus. I think what makes Eros and Aries and Eros and Taurus different is that Eros and Taurus is a lot less aggressive. He's a lot more mellow guy. He's a lot more chill guy, very relaxed guy. I don't know who is the famous, I don't know if Noah Centineo has Eros and Taurus, but I think he is a Taurus. You know, there's something like very mellow about him. He still is having fun, but he's not too aggressive or too crazy. He's a sweetheart from what I've observed. One thing to know though about man with an Eros and Taurus is that he can be very possessive, and it's very true. I've dated someone who had that placement. Wow, this man considered me part of, you know, not necessarily property or anything like that, but he just really thought that like I was his. And I think Taurus is just in general the placement, when they love you, they really think you are part, they're a piece of something. In a sexual way, this is the kind of man who may want to mark you in some way. So I will let you use your imagination what this could mean. But I've dated also a guy who really, I don't know, I think teenagers do this, who would leave me like a bite mark or something, which was crazy. I was like, you cannot do this. But they wanna, because they are possessive, and this sometimes is not something that they may showcase necessarily in a relationship, but once they are sexual or physical with you, this is when that side could come out. They may not even, it might not even be something that they plan, it's just something that comes out. They want to mark you, they want to somehow, I don't know, put something on you, maybe a piece of clothing or something like that, to somehow that everyone knows that you are theirs, or, you know, like there is something that suggests that there is a connection between the two of you. Very, very much Aries and Taurus, since they're possessive, they like doing that. I think the good side about Aries and Taurus is that this is the kind of man who is going to be very, very in a way like intuitive, in an instinctual way when he's with a woman. And if you want to seduce, let's say, or attract a man who has Aries in the sign of Taurus, one thing I would suggest is don't be way too provocative, don't be too aggressive. Be just this very natural woman, like natural scents, jasmine, I don't know, rose. You know how like I actually have a perfume from Jo Malone, which, you know, it smells like roses. So it's like, it doesn't even smell like perfume. It smells like if you took, let's say, the roses I have and just poured it on me. This is the kind of things that Aries and Taurus really likes and really appreciates, and it's a turn on for this kind of man. Think more elegant. Think again, old money chic or something like that. Or maybe if he's more modern and he's more like, let's say, free-spirited, which can be very much with Taurus, think like this earth goddess energy. Like, you know, flowy kind of like this, you know, dresses, you know, bare feet connected to nature. This can be quite a turn on for a man with an Aries and Taurus as well. This man, even though he's not like a crazy like sex addict or anything like that, this is the kind of man who still values sex. So for him, actually, it's interesting. Once you and him like make love, this is the kind of man who tends to think, okay, something serious is starting now. So if, let's say, this man is not, you know, initiating sex or initiating some kind of physical contact, he might not be interested in you, because once this man actually starts seeing potential in you too and starts seeing something serious with you, he might be the person, like not might be, he is the person who will want to, you know, explore the physical side of things, like, you know, sleep with you and all these things. Once like that happens, this is when for him it's like, you know, sort of like it's serious, because they take, Aries and Taurus man take sex quite seriously. So once you make love, it might for him mean that, okay, we're together in some way. Again, this man doesn't like one night stands. He doesn't like anything cheap or too vulgar. He could be sometimes quite easily satisfied when it comes to love making, maybe even simple things. So for those of you who are into crazy, I don't know, dressing up and whatever, whips, how you call it, whips and turn, whatever the things, like the more like S&M or whatever, might not be for you, to be honest, this person, because again, unless there's other aspects in his chart, he likes just a very beautiful natural love making and not necessarily anything too hardcore or too crazy. That's just, you know, that's just how this man is. And again, this might be a person who might not always be able to vocalize what he needs, what he wants, but he will try to show you. So you will have to find a way how to speak with him about certain things, whether, let's say, you're not satisfied in some way or something like that. But yeah, Aries and Taurus overall, I feel like it's very worth it. But again, if you are like crazy kinky, I don't want to say that he is not, but he's just, again, he's a more natural guy. Now, if you are a woman who has Eros in the sign of Gemini, or if you are a man who is interested in how to seduce a woman who has Eros in the sign of Gemini. So this is the kind of woman who gets bored very easily. Similarly to woman with a Venus in Gemini, similarly to also woman maybe even with other placements in the sign of Gemini. It is a little bit different here because again, Eros is not quite the same as these other planets, but this is the kind of woman, lady, who is very much turned on by a guy who can be an amazing speaker, who is what you call it, silver-tongued guy, a guy who just knows his ways with words, a guy who can tell some spicy joke, a guy who just, you know, it's not necessarily even about the smartest, being the smartest guy or being even the funniest guy, even though she can appreciate, you know, somebody who is witty and stuff like that. This is about just, you know, sometimes this is the woman who gets turned on by, I have to be like very careful with how I phrase this, but it's almost like this is the kind of woman who gets turned on by someone who is not quite straightforward, someone, you know, like she's not quite sure, like she can't quite figure him out. So, you know, like if you say something that maybe has a bit of a like sexual innuendo, right, they call it, that might really work with her because she appreciates when there is something that's very well put together, witty, smart, and it's kind of like a turn on, wow, this guy is just like so unusual. It's not about like being your book smart necessarily or like being a super top comedian or something like that, but when, you know, there is this play with words that's taking place, the woman who has Eros in the sign of Gemini, she really likes that. I have a friend who has Eros in the sign of Gemini, and she literally sometimes, like, she doesn't care so much about appearance necessarily, but she really cares about how a guy talks, how he speaks, what kind of text he sends her. Like if she gets on a dating website or a text that she thinks boring, I'm not even, you know, like blowing it up out of proportion, she might never respond. She might be like, oh, this guy's boring. I know it's a little bit, you know, like some people would be like, oh, you know, this is too much or something, but yeah, this is not the woman who is for everyone necessarily. So if you want to really impress this type of woman, if you really want to turn her on and get to her, it's kind of, you need to find a way how to be exciting, smart, not so straightforward, not so easy to figure out, not boring. Oh my god, this is the kind of woman who gets bored very easily. When you get to actually more also like date and like, you know, like seduction moments with her, it's like there needs to be a little bit of this excitement. And imagine like you're on a reality TV show or you're in a movie. She doesn't really like to stay 100% present in reality. So this is something very different, let's say, from a woman who has Eros and Taurus. Let's say a woman who has Eros and Taurus, she likes to be present in the moment. She likes the sensuality of, you know, things, the fabric around her, the smells, all these things. Now, a woman who has Eros in the sign of Gemini, she wants to always be like, you know what I noticed turns them on? When they can associate themselves or a person they're dating with, let's say, a character of a novel or like some kind of character from a movie. Like, yeah, this is, I have Venus in Gemini, but like, it's not the same as other placements, and I found that I understand these placements, having a placement like that myself, but it is quite different. This is a whole other extreme I feel like they're taking it to. And again, there is something here about, wow, we're just like that movie, or he's just like that character from that. They wanna, like, they get bored with just whatever it can be easily figured out, or whatever is just your mundane. They wanna always imagine themselves like, it's not necessarily even about adventure, but they always wanna imagine themselves being, a character of, some kind of creation. They appreciate art, they appreciate creativity a lot. They do like to chat. Like, again, this is the kind of probably placement that will really, of course, do not start this before you know a person, but let's say if you're already dating this person, you're comfortable with them, they will appreciate, like, not your, like, vulgar, like, Eros and Aries likes, but more of your, like, very sexy, witty type of, words and suggestions, and I don't know, like something of that nature. They can sometimes be very fast, very experimental. Sometimes even this is the type of person who, again, for things in general regarding to like bisexuality or even same-sex relationships, there needs to be, of course, other placements. But sometimes a woman, let's say, who has Aries and Gemini, she might be into, you know, both same and opposite sex at the same time. There might be even fantasies of, you know, like experimenting with one more person and things like this. So, you know, it's in a way like it's really fun placement, because they don't take this necessarily so heavy and so seriously, and for them sexuality may be like, and sex itself may be like a game, like a playful activity. So they don't take things way too seriously and way too heavy. However, this is a placement that gets bored easily, and you need to stimulate them on a intellectual, on a mental level. So if they're bored with you, sorry to say, but you know, I think that from all the signs, actually, Aries and Gemini is the one who can separate feelings, emotions from physical experiences, from their thoughts. They can be very, how to say, in different departments. Like, let's say their feelings can be in one place, now their like sexual responses and all of that can be in another place, and then also how they think about things can also be somewhere. So it's kind of strange how it works, because in a way, like, for Mars and Aries, it's very direct, like there is sex and there is also relationships. For Aries and Taurus, it's more about, okay, we have love and we have sex, it's all kind of like one. Now for Aries and Gemini, there is a whole other like new department that's added, and they like to sort of like departmentalize, I don't know if it's the right word, all these things. But yeah, if you want to seduce a woman with Aries and Gemini, talk to her in the right way. You know, tease her a little bit, get her excited, get her craving a little bit for more. If the guy is too here I am, we get bored with it sometimes. It's not that we like the chase, but we like when we, you know, we can't figure you out immediately, when you keep our attention somehow. Something about you keeps us guessing. And I know it's like maybe, you know, not the best, because we get obsessive over this, but if you want to really get attention of this woman, keep her guessing. Don't disclose yourself completely. There needs to be something about you that she feels excited to figure out and think about. And that's how this woman, I think, can get, you know, turned on and can get, even fall in love with you. Because don't forget, Aries is not just a placement of just sex, it's erotic love, it's what turns us on. It's not so like just, oh, purely physical. It's a lot more than that. It's like our deep desire for love, but in a very erotic and a very sexual, sensual, passionate way. So now let's talk about man who has Aries in the sign of Gemini. How do you seduce a man who has Aries in the sign of Gemini? Now this is a placement which makes this kind of guy, I think, very, I don't want to say moody necessarily, but his opinion on sex or what he wants, what he likes, can actually change a lot. Like, he's very experimental. Don't forget, Gemini is here about learning, absorbing everything. It's ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is a planet of messenger. Mercury goes everywhere, takes, you know, all the necessary things, doesn't stay necessarily too long in one place, but it extracts everything it's interested in. It extracts all the information, and, you know, as a messenger, it brings that information forward. You know, it's a messenger of the sun, right, astrologically. So now here with Eros and sign of Gemini, this is the kind of man who will like to experiment a lot when it comes to sex. This is definitely the kind of guy who will probably, most likely, you know, at least once in his life try some kind of threesome, or maybe even try like different type of, you know, sexuality, you know, just out of curiosity maybe. I'm not saying necessarily he will be like bisexual or anything like that, but he could be. He's just very open-minded about what love is, what love means, and he wants to, again, given there's other aspects in his chart that allow and don't contradict that, he will most likely follow through his interests and his kind of like infatuations. If you want to seduce this kind of guy, you know, for him to really either commit or focus only on you, he needs to be really infatuated with you. So again, Gemini, usually if they can figure things out fast, same as man or a woman, they tend to hop from thing to thing. Okay, I figured this out, I extracted this, I extracted that, so they don't stay too long. So you have to also be aware of that. But at the same time, if there's something about you which he also feels that he cannot quite figure out, so there's something mysterious, let's say, for example, I'm very, let's say, spiritual, but at the same time, so I have very deep, wise sides to me, but at the same time, let's say I do something also completely stupid and funny and totally that doesn't go with, let's say, more spiritual side of me. Now, for some men, it's going to be a huge turn off. They're going to be, oh, this girl is weird, whatever. I don't know. I'm not into what she does. But for a man, let's say, who has Eros in the sign of Gemini, he will be like, oh, wow, this girl is really interesting. She has this duality to her. Or there's something about her also, like, I can't quite figure out. It might be conscious or it might be unconscious, but again, if he cannot figure you out fast as much as he will want to, this is the kind of guy, and this is kind of like the way you get this person's attention. Now, sometimes Aries and Gemini partner is into one-night stands. Sometimes, again, I don't want to say that just this placement makes somebody a cheater, because it doesn't. That's not how real astrology works. But sometimes this person, again, because curiosity, he might be interested, he might have curiosity about what else is out there, which is why my advice to you, if you really want this type of man, there needs to be something about you which just makes him so obsessed with you that he wants to stay there and not necessarily turn his attention on anywhere else, because he will stay with you. I'm almost feeling like he will stay with you until he can fully figure you out. So there are always, you know how there's this old-fashioned saying how, you know, always a woman should be a little mysterious. I don't know if there is one in English. I know we have in Russian one like that. But yeah, it's like something about you needs to be hidden so that he can fully figure you out. And of course, if you're a woman interested in a man who has Aries in the sign of Gemini, check what else is happening in his chart. Check his 5th house, check his Jupiter, Venus, Moon placements, because just by Aries in the sign of Gemini, you cannot definitely say that this guy will be unfaithful or something like that. He will be, again, just very excited about things, and he will want to experiment. So this could be a very loyal guy as well, and if he is in a loyal relationships, it could be that he will just want to try different things on with you, experiment about different things with you. It's going to be very important for him to also talk or communicate either about sex or during sex. Could be also one of the ways how it could be happening. I don't have Aries in Gemini, but I have a lot of 8th house placement in Gemini, and I have to say, for people with just Gemini, whenever there is something about sexuality connected with the sign of Gemini, communication about this matters. Talking about these things is important, and it's even healing, because the more this person expresses itself naturally, the more like they become kind of whole, not fragmented, and they also like they express themselves, they make themselves heard, they make themselves understood. This is very important for them as well. There is something about this man where he can be this very youthful, there could be this very youthful attitude towards sex as well. This is the kind of person who could really even actually like to collect books on sexuality, on romance, on love, magazines. I will let you decide what kind of, you know, there is that interest just, you know, to kind of see and learn about these things. So he's passionate about it. Yes, this is a very kinky placement. Sometimes, again, this person could be a little bit more into cheating, but again, I've seen some men who had this placement. I haven't dated them, but from what I've seen based on observation, I haven't really seen a toxic cheater or something like that. It's just more, yeah, there is this very like usually kinky vibe about them, something very flirty about them, but again, it could be expressed in a totally healthy way. But just, I guess, one thing that is kind of true for both men and women is they gotta stay excited, otherwise they just get bored, and it's, you know, it's not even really their fault. It's just the nature of Gemini placement. Really, whatever it happens is to keep learning, keep exploring, keep, you know, trying different things. Okay, so now if you are a woman who has Eros in the sign of Cancer, or if, let's say, you're a man who is interested in a woman who has Eros in the sign of Cancer. So what does it mean? This is a very interesting placement, and of course I'm going to mention how it is a more conservative one. It's of course a woman who is a lot more probably, you know, traditional. She's not necessarily vulgar, or she doesn't like someone who is too pushy, too aggressive with her. So all of that, yes, it's kind of a common sense. It comes with the Cancer placement. But what I find actually very interesting, and something maybe not necessarily as like basic or on the surface about this placement, is that to understand the sexuality of a woman who has Eros in a sign of Cancer, we need to understand, first of all, also a dynamic in which she grew up in. So in which country she grew up, what was her dynamic with her mother like, how did she observe relationship of her mother and her father, because all of these things, you know, obviously they impact anyone, whether you have Eros in Cancer or not, but especially for a woman who has Eros in the sign of Cancer, this is so much more important. So what were the attitudes towards sex in her family? Was her family very strict, or was her family actually very open about these things? It's going to directly impact her and how she's going to express herself once she is an adult. There could be some very special also connection with your mother. So something with your mother could also affect her sexuality and how she expresses herself very much as well. This is actually, even though, you know, you wouldn't think that, oh, Aries and Cancer, like you would think it's more conservative, this is the kind of woman who can be very much attracted to other women, because don't forget, Eros is what turns us on, and Cancer is this very feminine nature, feminine qualities. So this is the woman who can fall in love or who can be attracted to other women as well. Again, there needs to be other placements in a birth chart of a person for us to kind of fully decide whether, you know, because I guess an example here that I can demonstrate is that, let's say there is a woman who has Eros in the sign of Cancer, but she, let's say, also has Venus in the sign of Gemini, and, you know, let's see what other placement, and just, you know, maybe also some other placement which suggests that she wants to experiment, she wants to try different things, that yeah, in this case this woman could be into other women and actually have relationships with other women. She could be bisexual, she could be into relationships with women, so that would confirm that. But let's say if she has Eros in a sign of Cancer, but let's say, I don't know, she's like Venus in what sign? Also Venus, let's say, in Cancer, or maybe even Capricorn or Taurus, something of this nature. She might just be very attracted to the beauty of other women, but she might not necessarily act on it or have actual like relationships or sexual relationships. So again, it will depend also like on, you know, whether you're straight, bisexual or gay, because these placements tend to play out a little bit differently in these cases. But this is just something to demonstrate how astrology works. So it's not like so straightforward. However, again, Eros in the sign of Cancer, very often this could be a woman who is attracted to just this very feminine energy. And even when it comes to also the kind of man she's attracted to and how to also like kind of, you know, get a little closer to her. She likes a man who has both something very secure and stable about him, kind of just like a woman with an Eros in the sign of Taurus. But at the same time, she also likes a man who has, you know, connection to his own feminine side, because again, don't forget, Cancer is ruled by Moon. This is the kind of woman who just doesn't like rude people, who doesn't like when there's too much aggression, when a man is just too straightforward with her. So everything basically I said about a woman with Eros in the sign of Aries, disregard this or make it total opposite almost for a woman with the sign of Cancer, because here this woman just really likes a man who is gentle. She likes this, you know, not necessarily even old classic movies or something like that. She likes something very nurturing, very family-like, very soft, maybe even cuddly. And this could be not necessarily a turn-on, but it could be something to make her like to feel safer, because again, Eros in Cancer needs to feel safe first, and then they can go into their very, you know, erotic and emotional side. Their erotic nature and their sexual side is highly connected to their emotions. So this is the placement that could go through time periods where they feel extremely sexual, extremely kinky maybe even, and then they could go through a time where they totally not into it. You know how the moon constantly changes, right? The moon is the fastest changing energy. So same with the Eros in the sign of Cancer, they can go again through time periods. Maybe they're super sexually experimental, it could be, and then they go through, I don't know, maybe celibacy or just being super conservative or something like that. Their sexuality always changes. Again, of course, breasts are a very big part for anyone who is, you know, connected to any Cancer energy, whether it's Mars, Venus, or any other placements. So for Aries and Cancer, this part of their body is very important. They might like to draw attention to this part of their body. It could be somehow very important also in how, you know, you touch them and all of these things. What else to add also for this placement? Home and nurturing environment, very important for them. They are not so much, I mean, I don't know if, again, there might have some kind of experimentation stage for a person who has Eros in the sign of Cancer, but in general, this is the sign who, I wouldn't say they're so much into one night stands or into something rude, unless there is something, not rude, but something aggressive, something more like crazy and stuff. Unless there is other aspects in their chart that suggest something different. If you're a man who is interested in a woman who has Eros in the sign of Cancer, get to know her very, very well before like approaching her. Because one thing you're gonna learn is she's gonna be very moody when it comes to how open she is, how open-minded maybe she is. So you will really need to learn her moods, you will really need to learn her mind, learn to read her mind maybe, I'm not sure, and feel very intuitively what this woman feels ready for, what not, and just be very gentle with her. Don't be like too aggressive and stuff like that. That's just not gonna work. Show her that she can feel safe. That's the most important, I think, for any major Cancer placement. Okay, now let's talk about man who has Eros in the sign of Cancer. This is not as straightforward as you would think, however, it's very interesting placement. So guy who has Eros in the sign of Cancer is a very, very big, you know, you would think, right, teddy bear. Yes, this is the guy who likes to hug, this is the guy who likes physical display, how you call it, physical display of affection, something like that. It depends. So with this guy, he can be in a long-term relationship and he just can be very, you know, moody. So this is the kind of guy who, you know, one day he might be into something, again, another day not into something, because again, Cancer is a very, you know, it's a fast-changing energy, fast-changing planet that rules it, which is Moon. So he can be quite moody, that's the thing. So you will really kind of need to learn him, just like a woman in the sign of Cancer, learn him better, because some days he will be very direct with you and kind of let you know what he wants. Other days he might look like he's not even interested, so he can be a bit confusing. I've actually, from my first-hand research, what I've noticed is that some of the guys, so I have some of my friends who have these guys, so they don't really date them, but they sometimes, you know, like, and quite often actually, not just sometimes, meet with them, just have a dinner, I don't know, something else, and then, you know, like, make love, basically, right? So they're the kind of guys that a lot of girls feel very comfortable with, but they not necessarily either, you know, date seriously, unless they, like, fully decide on it, or they just, there is something, you know, there is something a bit strange about this placement, to be honest, because it's kind of like it's the placement that really wants to be in secure relationship, yet I think because of some indecision and sometimes moodiness, again, depends on the entire chart, but they might sometimes just kind of end up in this in and out dynamics where you spend the night together, then you're just friends, and then again you're spending the night together and stuff like that. So how to seduce this kind of man? I feel like it's quite easy, to be honest. Man with Aries and Cancer is not so hard to seduce because, you know, they're very sensitive. So if they feel like you are turned on and if they like you too, it's gonna kind of go, I think, in a very easy direction. I think what becomes trickier is to actually have a relationship with a person with this placement, because like I said again, they tend to kind of like experience this very big shifts of energy. Sometimes they just really want something, other times they switch to be thinking and fantasizing about their ex. So this is the kind of person who also needs to feel safe with you and secure with you and know that he can actually stay here and you're not going to get bored of him and you don't want to just use him for this and this and that. This is the kind of guy actually, and I think I dated a guy who had this placement as well. Very rare, right? This usually it's a woman who is afraid to be used for sex or whatever, but actually a man who has Eros in the sign of Cancer, sometimes they're the one who is somehow, they have this complex where, oh my god, she's just using me for sex and stuff like that. A bit strange, but that's what I've seen. Now when it comes to like what this man is attracted also physically, so he doesn't like, again, too tomboyish, he doesn't like too aggressive. He likes, you know, most men who have either Venus in Cancer or Aries in Cancer are very attracted to women with larger breasts. You don't necessarily have to be skinny, but this is usually the guy who likes larger breasts, just even more feminine, curvier body. They can be sometimes very shy also in terms of, you know, let's say you're making love, they prefer it in the dark sometimes. It makes them feel more free, I guess. And this is something that some of my friends who dated guys with this placement did tell me. But overall, I think it can be a very nice boyfriend. It's just like if you can get over some of the moodiness and some of the instability, sometimes they don't know what they want, not as direct. And Aries is the guy who comes after you, let's say, and grabs you, and that's it, he wants you. And sometimes it can be a good thing if you want him to, but sometimes it can be a bad thing because maybe you don't want that, but he still is, you know, like running after you. Aries in Cancer, this is the kind of guy who very often cannot make up his mind. There is, of course, this motherly energy he is attracted to as well. But I think that with this placement, get to know this guy, but also don't go into this dangerous zone where you either become F-buddies or friends with benefits, or just you're confused about where you stand. You need to be yourself, you know, not necessarily super direct with him, but at some point, once you know him enough, you need to be able, in order to not fall into the confused zone of I'm not sure what we are and what we are doing here, you need to let him know what you actually expect. And even when it comes to sex, you also need to, you know, in a very safe, in a very kind of like mellow way, let him know what are the things you're into, what are the things you want to experiment with. Some of the things he might be open to, some of the things not so open to. Again, there is something here about, like, just in general having different kinks when it has to do with breasts. I don't know, like just this very feminine, motherly energies. He sometimes can be attracted to women who remind him of his mother a little bit. It could be subconscious things. But anyway, I think this is it with this placement. Let's move to the next one. Okay, now let's move to Eros in the sign of Leo. So I have this placement, woman with Eros in the sign of Leo. So probably I'm gonna talk about this a little bit longer since, you know, I'm the owner of this placement. So what is Eros in Leo woman like? How to get to her? So similarly, I think to Eros in the sign of Taurus, this is the kind of woman who has high standards. So if you're the kind of guy who, let's say, you know, very simple, want to just do simple things, you know, and don't want to like really impress a woman, she might not be a good fit for you. This is the kind of woman who could be very much impressed by a man who has status, who is some kind of, you know, in some kind of limelight, a man who has, like I said, with very similarly to Juno in Leo, a man who has a bit of a starboy quality. This woman could have maybe briefly, even in her life, a stage where she's a bit of a groupie, and it's okay. It's just there is something about Eros and Leo woman where, again, kryptonite energy. You see someone who just has all this power with them, all this, you know, star appeal. I don't know what's the right word for these things. And it's just something like on a psychological level unfolds where you're like, oh my god, this man is the king, you know, whatever. You want the king. The woman who has Eros in the sign of Leo, she feels very much like a queen and she wants the king. Sometimes her queendom or whatever is repressed while she's still developing, she's still building herself up. So she might very much be into a short route of, oh, if I have a powerful man next to me, you know, here I am, I'm the queen. But I think as these women also usually mature, and grow up and start developing their own skills, their own talents, they start valuing themselves more, so they are much less of like groupie, but they are much more of an equal partner. Still, regardless of that, however, she doesn't want most likely an average Joe. She wants a man who has impressive career accomplishment, a man who is impressive in some level. She really wants to know that she's your queen, like that she's the best. So talk to her in this very, you know, acknowledge her, like really give her, wow, you're so talented, you're so beautiful, you're so amazing. This kind of woman is gonna melt into your hands, because all she needs to hear, all she wants to hear is she's the best. So maybe, okay, she's not the most beautiful, even though I wouldn't suggest tell her that she's not the most beautiful. Lie to her if you need to. Tell her, yes, you're the most beautiful woman in the world. She, you know, just trust me on that one. But she wants to hear that she's unique. It's not narcissism. I don't really think it's narcissism, but there is something about, especially what turns her on sexually, where validation is where she's really like, wow, this must be a man for me. He validates me so much. It's a Leo thing, like, which is why maybe I understand other Leos, even though I'm not a Leo, but I have a lot of asteroids in Leo. It's a Leo thing where, you know, you want to be the best, you know, and you want a partner who sees that in you. And even if you're not the best yet, you want a partner who is gonna, you know, see your potential and be with you together on your journey to being the best. So, this woman can be very jealous, especially if there's other aspects in her chart about that. So if you're gonna have a wandering eye and look at other women, or be like, let's say, oh, like looking at hot girls on Instagram, I don't know, wow, this is gonna like bruise her ego, and this could infuriate her, because she's like, what? You're supposed to be looking at me. This is the kind of woman who, you know, there is different kind of course, and this is like, I understand everyone has different opinion about these things, but let's say there is women who might feel very like, ew, how to say this correctly, there is women who might feel very kind of like disgusted by, let's say, a man is looking at your sexy pictures and does something, right? While he's, looking at those pictures of yours. So some women can be kind of, unless they really like him, and disgusted by that. But actually, a woman who has Eros and Leo, having man's sexual attention and knowing that there is men out there, even not just her own partner, that, let's say, like sexually fantasize about her, that, have your pictures, let's say, somewhere on their phone or whatever, that is kind of a turn on. So she's not necessarily against it, because she's like, oh wow, all these men give me this attraction and energy. She likes that. She likes that. The worst I would think an ego blow would be like if she's cheated on, or if, let's say, a man even not cheating on her but checks out other women at her restaurant, or follows all of these hot girls on Instagram. I know, because also this happened to me. It just felt like the worst disrespect possible, because here I am trying to be so hot and sexy and whatever, you just have your attention and you're going looking at someone else. It felt like betrayal when there was a man who was doing this to me. So yeah, if you want her to really warm up to you, just give her your undivided attention, give her the best things, the most, like, try to impress her in some way. So it's not necessarily so much about expensive things or super high quality things as with Taurus necessarily, but this is about impression in some way. Like, show her, I don't know, like when I dated a guy one time, I don't know, I don't want to get too personal here, but when, let's say, he was on stage or something like that, wow, this was like so impressive for me, because this guy is popular, and out of all these women who want him, he chooses me. And for Eros and Leo, it's quite a turn on, because she's like, wow, I'm with the best looking guy. She doesn't like shy types, I'll be honest with you. She doesn't like your average guys or shy type. She wants this big, maybe not big ego, I don't know what's the better word. She wants that big guy, larger than life personality, bright guy, attention, center of attention. She wants to be in this luxurious environment. She wants to be impressed. Like, she wants to feel like a queen, like a goddess. Oof, yeah. Basically, I gave you an instruction of what to do if you ever decide to date me. But it's like, don't take her on some kind of taco date, even though she might like tacos. At least for the first dates, try to just go out of your way to impress her. She will appreciate that. And if you have some kind of special status in the society, special connections, popularity of some sort, this might work to your advantage. As superficial as it sounds, again, there's so much more to our chart than that. But I have to say, even though I have some very different also aspects in my chart where I appreciate depth and, soul connection, all of this, I still kind of identify with this Eros and Leo also, just the way it is. Now, if you're interested in a man who has Eros in the sign of Leo, I have dated a guy who had Eros in the sign of Leo, and I am myself Eros in the sign of Leo, so get ready for another interesting one. So this is the guy who has a certain degree of narcissism in him. It might not necessarily be negative. It might be, again, his whole chart is important. So there is something here about Eros and Leo where he likes to be worshipped. He likes to be followed around. If he has any kind of social appeal, whether he is even low-key famous, he will be getting off on all these girls, all these guys, whatever, following him around, liking him. He likes attention. He is the kind of person who likes to also fantasize about how much are you obsessed with him. So, like, if, let's say, he knows you kind of like him, he wants to almost push your limits. How far are you gonna go to seduce me? How far are you gonna go to impress me? I know it sounds kind of hardcore, but that's the way it is. When he is either attracted to you or in bed with you, he is going to try to do all kind of things. All he really wants to know and accomplish is that he's the best you've ever had. He's the best, there is no one better than him, and he is God, and this is the end of things. So it's similar to Eros in the sign of Leo woman, but I feel like Eros in the sign of Leo man takes it to a whole other extreme. So a woman, sure, she wants to be goddess, she wants to be impressed, she wants all these offerings, like we give offerings, right, to gods. The woman wants also offerings, presents, different things, being the center of attention. But Eros in the sign of Leo man is like, I feel like a whole other world of that, where he just wants you almost like on his knee, he just wants you like almost like on your knees, just like, you're the best I've ever had. He will actually ask you whether, he's the best you've ever had. And regardless of what the actual answer is, you kind of gotta need to tell him that he is. He will not take anything else for an answer. And I don't know what actually happens if you tell him someone else was bad, or maybe it could tease him, or maybe he could get angry. I'm not sure. I haven't tried that. If you try this, let me know. But they want to be the best. They want constant feedback also on their performance, whether in bad or outside of bad. So to seduce this man and even to make him fall madly in love with you, what you need to do, whether you actually believe it or not, well, don't lie, be authentic, of course, as always, but if you can go a little bit extra, and I'm half Middle Eastern, so for me, I guess it was very easy to do when I was dating such man. Go extra mile, tell him, oh my god, baby, you're so talented. Wow, baby, you're just, I've never seen anybody so good looking as you are. Oh my god, baby, you're just like, wow, you're the best. Like, whatever, just exaggerate and tell them how amazing they are. However, this is an important part which I also learned hard way. What you want to do is to stroke their ego and to really tell them all of these things, compliments, how amazing they are. However, do not, if he starts testing you, whether, you have your own self-respect and stuff like that, this is very important to take a step back and to show you that you're not going to deal with any of his BS. Because what this man can sometimes do, once he sees you're so crazy about him, they can start messing with your boundaries. Like, can I do this? Can I do that? Will she take this? Will she take that? Because again, this man likes to test limits. They get off from an idea of how obsessed you are with them. So they sometimes it can go to a dangerous territory where they can see, oh, will she hurt herself for me? Stuff like that. Sometimes there could be a BDSM element in this connection or relationship, but doesn't necessarily have to be. So you really need to know your limits, and you really need to know also your self-worth and self-respect, because again, even if you do all these things, this man might just not respect you, and then it's not going to go anywhere. So you need to kind of trick him a little bit into thinking he's the boss, yet when it comes to make decisions and you also asking for what you want, once he also is so invested into you, I feel like he's naturally going to start doing very often what you want, because hey, you're his biggest fan. He cannot lose his biggest fan. You can't lose your biggest fan, like, come on. So what might happen is that this guy will be so scared of losing you, even though he's still kind of a little bit narcissistic in some ways. But he's like, oh my god, this girl is everywhere where I am. This girl is so supportive of what I do. I will never find anyone like that. And he might actually go and try to find another woman. But let's say if you really do your job well, in a very authentic way. So it cannot be fake. It cannot be like, oh baby, you're so great, but you actually don't like him. If you're, of course, also like obsessed with him and crazy about him, just be very vocal about it. I think like if he genuinely feels you're so into him and you believe in him so much, even if he tries to find another woman, it's gonna be hard for him, because he will always remember how you boosted his ego. Because that's the thing, Leos very often, the reason why they need so much validations, or Eros and Leo even people, is because they are insecure somewhere deep down. So when you give them this validation, they are like, oh my god, this is my person. So this is, and again, when it comes to also sex, is sometimes sex can be very simple. It could go, to be honest, like it could be simple, sometimes very aggressive. They consider themselves the biggest lovers, the best lovers. Whether they actually are or not, it's another question. I'm not going to talk about this here. They could be very good, I think, but yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to add. And they are the ones who also like to nap, cuddle sometimes after bed. So they're not such a bad lover. So if you're interested in one, I hope this somehow helped you. Okay, so if you're interested in a woman, or if you are a woman whose Eros is in the sign of Virgo, so this is a very interesting placement. And I think that depending on other aspects of your chart, maybe you're not the most necessarily sexual person. When I say that you're not the most sexual person, it's just simply for you. I think a relationship itself you're in is more important than, let's say, like just different adventures, different experimentation necessarily. You want to be in a relationship first, and once you're in a relationship, here it's something that you usually like tends to keep also very private. So this is not the kind of woman who, whether she has like a lot of lovers in the past or maybe no lovers in the past, she's gonna kind of keep her sexual history very private. So there is, different types of women, different types of men, really. Some people have no problem saying how many people they slept with, what they did, what they didn't, like let's say, a person who has Eros and Leo, Eros and Gemini, these are people who are very open-minded. They will tell you, oh, I slept with 100 people or whatever, or I did this and that. They will even take pride of their achievements or accomplishments just because for them it's fun. They don't take it as serious necessarily. Now for Eros in the sign of Virgo, I don't think it's debilitated, to be honest. I don't really read debilitation of asteroids because I feel like it just brings uniqueness. It's not necessarily debilitated or exalted or anything like that. Eros in the sign of Virgo is just, you know, they tend to keep things private. I don't want to say that they're uptight because it's not necessarily the case, but they are not your, you know, Eros and Leo who will brag about their conquest or something like that, or Eros and Gemini who sometimes just for the fun of it will say something that's a bit shocking just to see also people's reaction, like about what they did, who they've been with and stuff like that. Eros and Virgo will tend to keep their affairs and maybe things that they don't want to disclose to others very private. They like their environment to be respectful, so be very respectful of this person. They like everything to be very clean. So you know how there is these people, I think most people have like the, what do you call it, by the nightstand, the paper towels or whatever. They're the kind of person who will, you know, have it there and this will need to be utilized whenever, just because they like to keep everything clean. They're not into this spill this over me, whatever, you know, like dirty stuff, dirty slash, you know, whatever stuff. For them it needs to be kind of still more clean, you know, as Virgo is, and just more simple even. Simplified experience could be better for somebody who has Eros and Virgo. I think for a woman with Eros and Virgo, depending on the other aspects of her chart, they might be need to open herself a little bit more sexually. Maybe there could be some sexual repression, given of course if there's other aspects of their chart, like they're not so comfortable with their sexual side, or they're also not so comfortable seeing other people being comfortable with their sexual side. Actually, if you have Eros in Virgo and you're watching my channel, I wonder what you think about this video, because you probably will not like it, or maybe you will think it's too much or whatever. I'm not sure. Maybe you will not even watch it. Maybe you're not even interested in that. Because I just feel like sometimes people who have Eros in Virgo are just a little bit more uptight about these things. They are like, well, unless we're doing it, why talk about it, kind of thing. I don't want to say that they are moody necessarily, but let's say they have certain setup literally in mind. Let's say they see it, okay, I'm dating this guy and I'm gonna go on 5 dates, and then he's gonna take me to a nice restaurant, and maybe then, you know, we'll discuss the possibility of being exclusive, and then we'll sleep together. Like she has some kind of scenario usually in her head of how she sees things progress. So if let's say you're gonna try and do something that clashes with the scenario of how she imagined things are gonna go, that might really not work well with her. She might be like, oh no, that's not what I thought was gonna happen. So they're not the most necessarily, I'll be honest with you, easygoing or experimental people. But at the same time, again, I think that actually Eros in the sign of Virgo is one of these placements that kind of like it can really change. So a woman may be early on in her life super closed off, super, maybe there could be something repressed even about her sexuality, but if she makes, let's say, a conscious choice, she wants to change maybe that part of herself doesn't really serve her so much, she can go from this Virgo kind of like a little bit more uptight when it comes to sex to somebody way more liberated, because Virgos can be very sensual, very sexual, very, you know, how to say, with Virgo it's more about they're that beautiful, you know, maiden virgin, which is very, you know, kind of like pure, but at the same time they do, you know, have that very passionate side of them. It's almost like it just needs to be discovered, you know, it needs to be kind of explored more. So it really depends how this is gonna play out. So of course, if you're interested in a woman like that, you know, give her time, give her space. Try to ask her, like, how does she see things maybe progress as well? How does she see, what's her ideal scenario? Because she might be into some very specific details of what she wants to happen. Hold my hair this way or whatever, look at me that way, stuff like that. It's just the way, you know, the placement I think is. Let me know in the comments below if you're in Virgo, if you feel this resonates, what do you think, like how it's playing out, do you think in your chart what your other placements are, because don't forget, other placements in our chart, they play a huge role in how everything plays out. So just because you have Juno in Virgo or Eros in Virgo, whatever, it doesn't make you a certain way. We need to look at everything in conjunction, as astrology is this big puzzle, so it's putting all these little pieces together. So anyway, now let's look at someone, let's say a man. If you're a man with this placement, or if you're a woman interested in, you know, man with this placement, what do we need to know here? Now I'll be honest with you, Eros in Virgo, and especially when it's a man, is a little bit more difficult placement. I'll explain why. this is the kind of man who really wants to know that you trust him. This is the kind of man who wants to know that first of all he satisfies you, he fulfilled, you know, his duty, he helped you, I don't know, he made you feel better, stuff like that. But at the same time, what tends to happen is that this man, as lovers, can be sometimes very, very insecure at times because they're hard on themselves. So for this person, sometimes, let's say they have certain sexual desires, and if they cannot understand the sexual desires, they may judge themselves, they may criticize themselves. So this is a very typical situation of, you know, there is a psychological Freudian concept called Madonna whore complex, as you know, how, let's say, there are certain men who experience this split. So let's say they have a image of a woman who is pure, Madonna-like, she's gonna be a wife, a mother of his children, but he doesn't always have this ability or feeling like he can go and express all his crazy sexual, you know, often repressed sexual desires with her, because she's this one archetype and she has that purpose. Now, let's say there is other type of woman he sees as, let's say, a whore or whatever, and he thinks like he can do all of this and that with her, but then he never would ever want to be in a committed relationship with her, because it's almost like there is a separation of what's clean and what's dirty. So I can do this with this woman because she's clean or good, and this woman is, you know, like, it's not necessarily as dirty, but you, like, if you were interested to learn about this concept, I find it fascinating, even though it's like Freudian, older, you know, psychology, sexology. I really think that Eros and Virgo man kind of follows that, because if they are not fully accepting of their sexuality, of their desires, there might be that split occurring where what the things that they want to do, they might not be feeling fully comfortable or fully accepting of themselves, so they will end up either suppressing that part of themselves completely and just judging themselves, like, oh, you know, how, I don't know if you've ever seen Sex and the City, that old episode where Miranda, I think, was dating this guy who was like taking showers. He was like very Christian, very Catholic or something, I'm not sure like his religion, but basically he was always taking showers after they would make love, and it was because he felt like he needed to clean himself or purify himself. There is a little bit of that. So again, it depends, because it's always we work on ourselves, right? We transform, we don't stay the same way. So if it's a man who has worked through some of his, let's say, judging himself for his sexual nature, for his sexual desires, it can play out much better. He can actually stop experiencing such extreme split, but he can start incorporating everything in one direction and have an amazing relationship without having to, you know, sleep with this woman, marry this woman. It doesn't have to be that way. But there is some men who, let's say, are less aware of that, and they tend to, okay, this is the woman I sleep with, she's blah blah blah, this and that, and this is the woman I marry and go for, and that's not so good, because very often this is when cheating happens and stuff like that. Again, I don't say that Eros in Virgo is a cheater, but again, there could be some sexual blockages sometimes which can lead to this thing. So of course we need to examine all other aspects in the chart of a person. It's hard to say just with Eros and Virgo whether this person actually follows like that, how extreme, let's say, his split of sexuality is, how accepting he is of his sexuality, because there's a lot more in our chart we need to look at, which of course has to do with 8th house, has to do with Moon, has to do with Mars, Venus, 5th house, actually your entire chart probably, if I have to, like, you know, go into like details here. But yeah, but if, let's say, this man has healed maybe that part of himself, he might just be he might have some specific rules maybe in bed that he likes to do. Let's say he doesn't do something specific in sex and just it's very firm about it. He still likes to, I think, keep things a little bit more clean and not into any kind of too much stuff. He wants to, I think what could also be happening is that this is the kind of man who likes to have things healthy, so he will go for things that he feels are healthy in sex, rather than if he feels this could damage his health, something maybe BDSM or whatever, something too crazy, he might rather not consider that. And if you're a woman who is interested in a man who has Eros in the sign of Virgo, I think what's helpful to know is that this is the man who is hard on himself. So regardless whether he has healed his sexuality or not, very often this is the man who is very hard on himself. He's sometimes insecure, shy. He's unsure also of his sexual performance. So like a Leo just, let's say, wants to, you know, hear how he's the best because he kind of thinks he is. Now, man with Eros and Virgo is very different from that. He very often feels he's unsure whether, did you, come or something like that. Are you feeling satisfied and stuff like that? So you gotta tell him those things, because if you don't tell him, he might internalize it somehow, and it might cause him feeling distant or feeling maybe you're not into him. So it's very important to tell him, maybe give him even specific directions of what you want him to do, but be very gentle with it. Don't be too kind of super direct with him. Just be practical, I would say, because Virgos are practical. And what else I would say? And also give him feedback. Tell him, oh my god, what you did made me feel so good, or this and this and that. This is gonna help this man more often than not open up and just, feel more comfortable. And hopefully when he feels more comfortable, better things can happen. Okay, so if you are a woman who has Eros in the sign of Libra, or if you're a man attracted to the woman who has Eros in the sign of Libra, what do you need to know about this, let's put it this way, mystical or more ethereal, magical creature? So the woman who has Eros in the sign of Libra, she's a very interesting one. This is an interesting placement. This is the kind of woman who kind of have both characteristics of a woman who is into more traditional type of man, she likes also a man who can take care of her well and all the things like that, but at the same time she's very open-minded and she's very playful as well. So in a way it's kind of the best of two worlds. This is the woman who likes her man to approach her a certain way, so you really need to feel it out. What is she into? What kind of movies she likes? What kind of gifts she likes? Because for her it's all kind of an art, Eros in Libra. She likes a man who can, if you can figure out her favorite flowers, and it's it might be something as simple as, beautiful roses or something like that, but she might be into some unique types of flowers or unique types of gifts, so you gotta figure it out what she likes. Be gentle with her, but at the same time, show your passionate side. Eros in Libra is turned on and is in love by the love itself, so it has to be beautiful. You can be passionate, but just not too vulgar. She might be very much into, a lot of different mirrors in the room, or beautiful also surroundings, similarly to a woman who has Eros in Taurus or Eros in Leo. But there is this appreciation of beauty, there is this appreciation of just, being in love and being passionate lovers. If you think of old, I don't know, for me, for some reason, this example comes in, old French cinema with all these, beautiful actresses, all these passionate scenes, or old Italian cinema, for example. Get inspired. Maybe even some women I've noticed who have Eros in Libra, some of my girlfriends, they have certain actress of old school cinema who is very classic, who inspires them. They follow her either via hashtags on Instagrams or something like that, and they get inspired from some of this very classic, very refined type of beauty. She might be very much into a man who can take her also to nice places, show her. It's not so much about financial side of it, but it's more impress her, even as a lover. Well, let's say this is the kind of woman who really likes a lot of foreplay. She likes to sweet talk, she likes a nice, I don't know, dinner or some kind of beautiful walk by the beach. Everything needs to be beautiful, everything needs to just feel right, because the thing is with this woman, if she's not into you, she might not, to be honest, directly express it and say, oh hey, I'm not interested or I'm not feeling it. She might just slowly start drifting away. She might still give you some attention, but not all of it. So if you're a man, let's say, and you've been chasing for a woman with Eros and Libra, but she doesn't say, yes to you, but she doesn't say no to you either, it's good to know that she might be not into you, but she's just, she's not confrontational. She will kind of start seeing, she will try to see what else you're good at and stuff like that. But if you cannot captivate her heart and just really take her on this magical journey where she craves to go, her attention is gonna drift away. What else I wanted to say here? Yeah, these are very, very sensual lovers who love magic, love this very sensual display of affection. They like foreplay usually. They're very into the beautiful parts of lovemaking. They like to imagine themselves in this, not pornography or anything, but this beautiful erotic movies, or maybe even old school movies, with this passionate scenes, but everything needs to be very beautiful. That's all I think I have about Eros and Libra. Overall, I think it's a beautiful placement. But the only thing I think, if you are a man interested in such woman, is do be careful. I don't want to say she's gonna lead you on, but it's more like you might be like pursuing her and chasing her and trying to get, you know, her to be with you, but she will like not really give you a definite yes or no. So, you know, just you gotta be kind of, I don't want to say firm, but you gotta be realistic, because I've noticed that women with Eros in the sign of Libra very often, you know, they the kind of women that men go crazy over and pursue for a long time, but she might be just, you know, kind of not really into you. But again, they are not very straightforward. So for them to say that like that out loud, I don't know if they usually do that. So you gotta be a little bit more careful. Now let's talk about a man who has Eros in a sign of Libra. And if you're a woman who is interested in a man who has Eros in a sign of Libra, what is he like in bed and how to also seduce him? So first of all, what we need to understand here is that Eros in a sign of Libra, just like his female counterpart, a woman with Eros in a sign of Libra, is very attracted again to romantic love. Everything needs to be like art, like poetry, like, I don't know, cinema or something like that. He's attracted to very beautiful women, but at the same time, women who know how to assert themselves. Now, this is the kind of lover, as much as he doesn't like women, I think, who are too straightforward and maybe vulgar or too much in your face, he is not the kind of man who is also, unless there's of course other aspects in his chart, he's not necessarily the kind of man who just goes straightforward and says, oh, I want this or I want that. He actually is the one who can be sometimes a little bit more submissive. So if, let's say, Eros in a sign of Aries, which is the opposite of Libra, is this man who is macho and he's like the dominant and he tells what he wants, you know, and grabs you and stuff like that, Eros and Libra could be quite different. He could be maybe not exact opposite, but quite the opposite of the man who has Eros in the sign of Aries. So this is the kind of man who will really want to elevate you in some way. He will want to look up to you as the queen. What do you want? How can I satisfy you? What do you want? So there is that with this kind of man. So with him, what can be a little bit tricky is to find that balance where, you know, you cannot really be an initiator with him, because that is to him a little bit too harsh. And he's very attracted to this very refined women. He is attracted to just refined romance. So he's kind of in his heart and old-fashioned. However, he's not necessarily an initiator, so it is a little bit tricky, and you need to look in his chart also what Mars is doing, how Mars is placed, what Venus is placed, so this will give you a little bit more understanding, so what to do with such man. At the same time, he's someone who is very romantic. He's the kind of guy who, you know, also not necessarily into, I feel like this kind of man who could try maybe one night stands and things like this, but he's more so also into romance and just beautiful things, falling in love and things like this. So in a way, it's a very interesting man to be in a romantic relationship with. I haven't really dated someone who has this placement with Eros and Libra, but just based on observations and some of the other experiences of other people I know, I feel like, again, Mars and Venus is gonna largely kind of determine what he is like, because again, one thing I've noticed is that they are not necessarily forceful. They are very much into cuddling, kissing, also things like this. Beauty, like romance has to be beautiful. Wear something super beautiful when you're with this kind of man. Try to kind of guide him into direction of what you actually want from him, whether in bed or in a relationship, but at the same time it cannot look like you are the one who is like initiator and you're the one who's telling him what to do. I think when it comes to actual sex, this is when you can start telling him a little bit more directly what to do, because he himself is not, like, he himself is a bit more submissive when it comes to actual, you know, action. So yeah, I don't know what else to add, but very romantic placement. It's a man also, just like the woman with Eros and a sign of Libra, is a man who is in love with love. He wants lovemaking to be beautiful, creative. One thing only is that not always he will tell you straightforward if he wants this or if he wants that. If he does that, it must mean that Venus and Venus, his ascendant, and also his Mars placement is doing something different. Now let's talk about Eros in the sign of mysterious Scorpio. So if you are a woman who has Eros in the sign of Scorpio, or if you're a man who is interested in such woman, this is such an interesting placement. So of course, as you can guess, probably this is one of the most hottest and sexual placements. These are the people who are porn stars in bed because they just love sex and they love to experiment things. For Scorpio Eros specifically, sex and power and also depth and control, even in the passion and love, all of these things are not some kind of separate fragmented pieces, but it's all kind of blended into one. This is the person who will see their sexual, abilities as a way of having power over the person they're with. This is the woman who likes men who have certain power. And unlike, let's say, a woman who has Eros and Leo, who likes, let's say, a guy who maybe is more famous or well known in some way, or is just like he turns heads. Oh, sorry, my flowers. Who turns heads. A woman with an Eros and Scorpio is not necessarily into some guy who is famous or something like that. She likes men who have power, money maybe, but maybe they're not too much in the face. So we all know there is these guys who are, I don't know, millionaires, billionaires, but you have no idea who they are. Like if you ever lived in New York City on a subway, there could be some guy, millionaire, billionaire, but you don't even know. But these people have a lot of, let's say, hidden power or money or hidden assets even. And for a woman who has Eros and the sign of Scorpio, this can be a huge turn on, because she wants a man who has achieved some kind of very, very big goal for himself in life, who has some kind of power. It could be very much money, because money and power are connected, but it could be something else. Maybe he has certain talent or certain gift or healing ability, or I don't know, he is like seeing things or stuff like that, or he maybe is just such a great lover as well, and through sex they can, I don't know, even experience deep healing, experience some kind of manifestation. There's all kind of things people do, with sexual energy, right? So this is what this woman is drawn to. And as you can guess, this is going to be probably, she will be very open to most things. But the thing is, if she likes you, if she doesn't like you, if she doesn't sees you as worth her time, she's not going to give you any, I think, attention. So I'll be honest, in order to seduce such woman, so first of all, there needs to be, she's very intuitive, so she needs to feel your energy. She needs to feel like this is something worth this exploration. And if you have some kind of power, this could be also, this could work to your advantage as well. Now, in bed with a woman who has Eros and Scorpio, she might also, similarly to placement of Eros and Taurus, where usually men of that sign really like to mark their women or their partners. Now, Eros and Scorpio, I feel like especially a woman of that placement is the one who will like to, leave scratches or some kind of things like this, because again, there is this possession, there is this desire to own something you really want. Kind of in a way similar also to Eros in Leo, where that woman or that man wants to know they're the best lover you've ever had. They want to know that they're the best at something. Eros and Scorpio doesn't necessarily want to be the best, but they want to be the one who will leave some kind of mark on you, knowing that they are the one who has changed you in some way, even if it's hurtful experience or anything like that, is going to be a big ego boost for this person, because they will know that no one else did what they did with you or something of that nature. So I hope that, of course, this is being used in a positive way, such as maybe some kind of transcendental sexual experience, because sometimes with this placement, it's just such a powerful energy. These people need to learn how to tame that. And if, let's say, you're watching this and it might not necessarily 100% resonate, look at what also is happening with Venus in your chart and Mars in your chart, because again, depending on this combination of these things, results might be slightly different. But again, still, Eros and Scorpio, very enigmatic placement. It is a placement where, people are turned on by the depth of a sexual experience itself, by the passion of a sexual experience itself, and really are open also to just try different things, not just for the sake of experimentation, I think, but because they just want this deep merger, this deep bond with their person. They want to know that they went as far as they could for this person. No one else, let's say, will do that. And they also want to, in some way, just have this, it's almost like using sex as a bit of a power, knowing that no one else will get them to that, place. Some Scorpios, even without Eros and Scorpio, have that a little bit quality of them if it's a dominant placement, but with Eros and Scorpio, it's kind of amplified. So now let's talk about men who have Eros and sign of Scorpio. If you're a woman who is interested in a man who has Eros and sign of Scorpio, what do you need to know? Okay, if you're a woman interested with a man who has Eros and sign of Scorpio, you're in for a treat. Well, I don't know if it's the best example or not, but what comes to mind is, I don't know if you've ever watched, 50 Shades of Grey and stuff like that, but I know it maybe is, again, not everyone likes the movie, it's not the best example, but it is something here about just first of all being so much into it, having absolutely almost no boundaries. This is the kind of person who wants to know. They, again, kind of similarly to Leo placement, they also want to be the best you ever had, but I feel like with Leo it has to do more with just that ego validation where, oh, I'm like the best lover you've ever had. With Scorpio it's a lot more deep and more psychological. Scorpio just wants to know that they have experienced you and they have given you also a piece of them that is like off limits to everyone else. Maybe you've never would do something, let's say, with someone else, but with this person, because it's not just about the physicality, it's also about the emotion. They are very deeply involved in their sexual and sensual experience. So because their emotions run so deep and there is just this soul merger, body merger, all of the things, kind of like all the boundaries being dissolved, this is what Scorpio wants. And Scorpio man wants the kind of woman who just can tell him like I think they know that they're very good lovers. So when you will tell them how you've never, let's say, experienced anything this mind-blowing, tantric or whatever with anyone else before, this is like they know they did their job right. And there is this aura of mysteriousness about this person. This can be a man quite powerful in some way, or if it's not the case, they are just very deep. There is some kind of dark, deep secret usually also that maybe is not available to many people. I don't know, again, the 50 Shades of Grey example, maybe not the best, but there is some kind of secret, some kind of, maybe like everything is off limits, but there is something, one little area of themselves they keep, very hidden, whatever it could be. Like maybe, they're totally involved emotionally with a partner, but there is one little secret, they still keep it. And it's like once you get to know them deeper, they will also unlock that secret for you, and it's going to be part of also your deep love and romantic erotic experience. Very, very passionate placement. They are very intuitive, they are very emotionally involved in sex, they're very, very kinky. This is the placement also likes to experiment with BDSM, all these different things. And they really also kind of get off knowing the power they have over you, the power they can, because of, let's say, certain tricks or certain things they can do, knowing how much it can affect you also gives them that. It's so like, I always find Leo and Scorpio has so much similarity in sexual nature, but it's totally different at the same time, because Leo also will really get off understanding how, wow, they just made you feel this and that, right? But for Scorpio it's different. For Scorpio it's about more psychological depth rather than, more of a surface level ego validation. At least that's my take on that. But yeah, this is a very deep and mysterious lover. To seduce this person, I feel like you gotta play, again, 50 Shades of Grey is my example for this, because it's just what comes up. How when this, whatever, Anastasia was there, how she had this appeal of almost like this super innocent girl, Virgo, almost like archetype. And then she also had this very kind of like bossy side, very femme fatale side also in her. So there is this duality where, first of all, Scorpio wants to know that, you are a bit of their, not victim, but kind of like, they are a hunter here and you are the prey there. But at the same time, they don't want an easy prey. So something where, you talk back to them a little bit, trigger them also a little bit, show that you kind of like are not an easy thing. And there is also this dark femme fatale aspect to you. It really gets them going. They don't want someone maybe who is just as overpowering as them, because it's too much, it becomes competition, but they want that a little bit of submissive energy, but also mixed with dominant energy. That's my take on Scorpio. I actually dated guys who had Eros in Scorpio. Very interesting placement. If they don't have any afflicted placements, such as also Mars or their Venus, amazing lovers. But if there's afflictions, that could become a little bit, literal, 50 Shades of Grey with mental games as well. So just observe also what else is happening in the chart. And overall, it's amazing placement, very deep, very exciting. This is the kind of placement after which you will write maybe a book, a novel or something like that. Okay, now let's talk about Eros and Sagittarius. Let's start with women. So a good example in I'm not sure if that character actually had Eros and Sagittarius or not, but I don't know if you guys ever seen Girls on HBO, and so there was, I forgot her name, what was her, the girl who ended up being with Adam in the end. So the girl who, hold on a second, One moment. What was her name? The girl who like was traveling all the time. Let's see. Girls on HBO. What was her name? Jessa. Oh yeah, so Jessa. So this Jessa who was like, you know, traveling the world. So of course Sagittarius always has to do with traveling, but not only. So of course with Eros and Sagittarius, yes, a woman like this can be very attractive. She can be very adventurous. Just like Gemini, which is the opposite, they usually are very open-minded when it comes to their experiences. They are not like super conservative unless there is other aspects in their chart. There is usually from even an early age this desire to experiment, be with older men, be with men your own age, be with, you know, like maybe when you're traveling, also like have an experience in the country where you go into and things like this. So Juno and Sag is very open-minded placement. They are kind of, how to say, they really value actual, you know, orgasm. So they are not someone who will just be, you know, in it for, let's say, let's just cuddle together and this and this and that. They actually like the straightforwardness, sometimes even of a sexual experience. They, when they're younger, they like also to get partners who can teach them different things. They're very open-minded. They don't really care usually what society thinks about their sexual preferences or sexual experiences. They're very, you know, like I kind of again think of that character from HBO Girls, because she was just, you know, like, I mean, yes, of course she was like very wounded and lost in her own way, but she kind of just did things, you know, because she wanted to, you know, and stuff. If you're a softie, if you're a very soft guy, and if you're a guy who is unsure of himself, could be hard with her, to be honest, because she can be, sometimes she can to your face tell you that no, like you suck, you know, or something. Yeah, there is a little bit of like this, of this energy of Sagittarius. She wants someone who can excite her. She wants someone who can teach her things as well, which is why very often women who have Juno and Sag in their early years, they tend to go for partners sometimes who are a little bit older, because they feel like they can learn lessons from them. Learn lessons, I mean, you know, in that kind of way too. So yeah, and what else I was gonna say here? They want someone who has an exciting social life, who is also traveling, or who is an interesting person. Like, see, unlike, let's say, a woman with Juno and Taurus, who is more in for security, stability, luxury, even sometimes also with Eros in, you know, Leo, or Eros in even Libra. Juno and Sag might not care about this, but what they want is some kind of excitement. If they get bored, they're over this. Very open-minded, very adventurous sign, and their back could be very important also zone for them, so it's kind of like erogenous or whatever zone. And if you want to approach and get the kind of woman who has Juno in the sign of Sagittarius, just be fun, be exciting. And you know, that's the thing, you cannot really lie about these things, because let's say if you say that, wow, you want to go bungee jumping or whatever, Costa Rica or whatever, or watch sunsets in the Madagascar or something like that, but you don't really want these things, but what you really value is, let's say, a lovely nap on a Sunday afternoon at home before you work on Monday. You cannot really lie about these things, because, you know, you need to find, I think, a partner who values you for how you are and not for who you are trying to be, because otherwise there's going to be a clash. Sag, they are very adventurous. Sagittarius, I think, is just in general also a very adventurous sign. So if you are the kind of person who is exciting, who is fun, you have good chances of getting her. But again, she is probably going to be very upfront with you if she's not into you. If she feels you cannot satisfy her, they can be a little bit selfish when it comes to lovemaking and things like this. When she feels like you cannot give her what she's looking for, it could be something physical, it could be something, you know, even physical dimensions of a body or whatever, things like this. She will be just like, oh no, I don't want this. A little harsh, but it's just how that can be. Have Eros in the sign of Sagittarius, and if you're a man, and if you're a woman interested, let's say, in a man who has Eros in the sign of Sagittarius, what do you need to know? So this is the kind of man, similarly to his female counterpart of a woman who has Eros and Sag. This is the kind of man, when he's younger, he will probably try to explore, accumulate different experiences. This is the kind of man that totally are okay to be with somebody older than them. You know, age difference could be very common in this type of connections. Like when they're younger especially. This is the kind of man who really loves sex, and this is the kind of man who is also very straightforward to sex. If he's in a committed relationship, he can be faithful, but if, let's say, there is such thing available to him as open relationships, or maybe he doesn't have to settle down. He will experiment, and he will probably have a lot of different women of different ages. He will be experimenting with, maybe there's gonna be polyamorous relationships. He could be open for that. He really likes to just, you know, have fun when he's having sex. He's very playful. So if it's a Juno and Sag man, he's very playful. He can be a little crazy and uncontrollable, even sometimes, kind of like most Sagittarius are, but it's authentic usually. It's because they are just, you know, here to have fun. Once they're in a committed relationship, they can be one of the most serious. Like once Cupid really hits them, they can be very serious, very committed. But if not, they just usually, you know, experimenting, trying different things. This is the kind of man who can stay very sexual until even very much older age. I don't know, for as long as it's possible, basically. So sexuality, like strong fertility, could be, you know, something that they will have for a very long time. So again, if you're dating this kind of guy, be open-minded. They wanna, at the end of the day, what I've noticed about Eros and Sagittarius, but also about Sagittarius dominant people overall, is that they want to have fun, they want to laugh, they want to have a good time, they don't want things to be too serious. Like, it's something in a way. I think the reason why my longest relationship and my best relationship was with a man who was Sagittarius, and I'm in general very like appreciative of Sagittarius people as well. There is something about them where they just can be themselves, and they are like something light about them. I don't even know what is that, and I don't know how to do that easily. So whenever I see people like that, I'm like, oh my god, how can I learn this? You know, how can I have these people in my life? So with Aries and Sag, again, if you are a person who is a bit more heavy and take everything too seriously, too sentimental, well, this person could not necessarily be the best match for you. However, if you're open-minded and if you actually, let's say if you feel like you're way too clingy, let's say, or way too attached, it can be an interesting partner if you're, again, open-minded of the differences and different maybe even attachment styles. You can learn from them a great deal of how to become more lighter and more fun, not take yourself so seriously. And even with sex, like, this is the kind of person who is just gonna like laugh with you in bed. They are gonna be making you laugh, like even if something, let's say, doesn't go right and stuff, as long as they can laugh about it, make some kind of joke about it, and you're also open with them on the same journey, you're not doing this, you're gonna have a good time. So that's my analysis for Eros and Sag. Let's move forward. Okay, so Eros and Capricorn woman. I don't have Eros in Capricorn, I have Eros in 10th house, which is a little bit similar but not quite like it. Eros and Capricorn woman, this is one of the more interesting placements too. So as we know, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, so right away we can say here that there is a bit more of a serious tone when it comes to sex. This is the kind of woman who likes men sometimes who are a little bit older, who have a little bit more power, who can give her something. So this is the kind of woman, and I've noticed this with Eros and Capricorn, sometimes even with Venus and Capricorn, sometimes not so much with Mars, but Venus and Capricorn especially, and even Jupiter and Capricorn. This is the kind of women who like a partner who can give them something in life, who can, let's say, you know, I mean, sure, can be always like a gold digger or something of that nature. It doesn't have to be. It could be just a woman who knows your value, and for her to have a sexual, let's say, experience with someone, it cannot be just about, oh, let's have fun or whatever. It has to be, okay, we do this, you contribute something to my life. So again, for some people it's like, oh, you know, it's like exchange or whatever, but not necessarily. I actually think that this is the kind of women who usually value themselves, where, you know, they know that they, let's say, are not interested in just having sex just for the fun of it or just for the experimentation. And we need to be respectful, again, of people's differences, because if you can see, there's all kind of different kinks and different motivations when it comes to sex. Some people want to get their ego boosted. Some people just want this beautiful fairy tale like romance. Some people want to have this motherly like and family like experience. So as you can see, like there's different archetypes and there's different turn-ons and different desires. So as long as you just understand that we all are different and we all have different desires, and just because someone is different from you doesn't make them bad, you know, it's all good kind of thing. So this is the woman who wants a man who can help her get ahead in life, even in some way. Like if we are together, so what kind of like, what does it contribute to my life? Again, might be attracted to older, might be attracted to a man who has some kind of power, who can help her somehow. She's not necessarily very much, you know, just gonna sleep with someone. If she sleeps with you, if she actually starts a relationship with you, it doesn't always have to be sex with relationship, but if let's say there's a sexual relationship, she needs to feel like this is making her life better in some way. There is a little bit, it's not necessarily a calculative approach, but there is something here about somehow being guided almost like by a mentor figure. There is sometimes a little bit of attraction to a daddy, like figures, because, Capricorn again is a sign of a daddy, so there is a little bit of that little girl, daddy kind of archetype and stuff like that. So, knowing that, and also knowing, whether you can, I feel like at the end of the day, it's about her also feeling supported and her feeling like there is this, with Eros and Capricorn, where part of this woman wants to feel when they, let's say, making love or having a romance with someone, that the partner is a little bit of a higher status than they are. There is a little bit of this energy. I have a few friends who have these placements. They like really wealthy guys, and this is a turn on. This is not just a calculation where, or you give me money, I give you this. It's not like that at all. So they are not like bad people or anything like that. It's more of they feel extremely aroused by power. So that is a turn on, because again, turn ons can be very different. So this is the woman. With a man who has Eros in Capricorn, they can be a person who actually likes to feel like they are in power when they are in a relationship or sexual dynamic with someone. They like to feel like they can give a lot. They like to feel, they like to hear maybe like, thank you daddy, or something like that. They like to have that power over a person. But at the same time, what I've noticed with some also men who have Eros in Capricorn, they also like a partner, even if let's say a partner is somehow maybe a little bit lower than them in status or younger than them or something like that. They're not just someone who, let's say, will be providing, benefits to everyone and stuff like that. They want to see that there is a little bit of this, this is getting weird. They want to see that there is a little bit of this almost like disciple archetype. Like, let's say you want to advance yourself in life, but at the same time you're willing to work for it. You want to work for it. You want to become better. They want to mentor you in some way. Now, since again, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, sometimes this man who has Eros in Capricorn can just, I'm not saying necessarily lacking imagination when it comes to sex, but he needs a little bit of, not necessarily even a reassurance, but more like if you're into something like crazy, you need to kind of show him the benefit of why would it be great if it would be incorporated, let's say, in your romantic erotic routine. Because again, Eros in Capricorn here is very serious. He needs to, his work is very important for him, the things that he's trying to achieve in his life, and if he chose you to be with him. And this is not the kind of man who like sleeps around a lot necessarily, or has a lot of one night stands. So if he chose you, whether you're in a relationship or not, he sees some kind of benefit also from you to him, and he also feels like he can provide you some kind of benefits because he likes to be useful as well, and he likes to be guiding people as well. So if there's something, let's say, he's not open to, because he might like some very specific things when it comes to bad, but not be, let's say, as experimental as Eros in Sag or Eros in Gemini. So with Eros in Capricorn, it's just about you kind of showing him all the different things that you guys can experience together, and like, why could this be great? So it's almost like, I'm not saying like prepare a PowerPoint or something like that, but like show him why that can be amazing, kind of like sell him on it almost. Like overall, it could be a serious man, sometimes lack a little bit of imagination, but again, need to see what Mars is doing in his chart, Venus is doing in his chart, what's happening in his 8th house. So it's not necessarily that he's a boring lover. He can be actually a great, amazing, very assertive, very Saturn also rules stamina, so this is a person who can be going for a long time as well. So there are a lot of positive placements, a lot of positive things about this placement. So, but you just gotta figure out and how he works, and also try to not be too like, I don't know, slutty or something like that. Try to be a little bit conservative. Try to show him how much value you have, and even how good you make him look, how good you look next to him, and he's gonna really appreciate that. Now let's talk about Eros in the sign of Aquarius, and if you are a woman with Eros in the sign of Aquarius, or let's say if you're a man interested in a woman who has Eros in the sign of Aquarius, what to expect. So I actually had a friend who, I have a friend who is Aquarius with an Eros in Aquarius. So a lot of these things will actually, kind of like be taken from, from that experience as well, but also some of my other analysis too. So when I think of Eros and Aquarius, she might not necessarily be the most, let's say, sexual or over the top appetite type of woman, but she really is into people who are unique, people who are interesting, and people who can who can give her what you want. Because don't forget, as much as Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, which gives a little bit of that conservative approach, there is this Uranus energy. So we have both desire to experiment and play and, you know, do crazy stuff, but also we have a little bit of that Saturn energy still, where she's like, okay, so what can you give me? Can you like get me off and stuff like that? So there is that energy as well. And this girl who I knew, so she was like a designer, nomad, going to Burning Man, very much into tech guys, very much into guys who were like, who had their basically stuff together. So they had, like, let's say, a job, and, you know, they were accomplishing things in their career, but at the same time, this is not your old type conservative. This is someone who also, let's say, well traveled, a nomad of some kind, you know, goes to like raves and stuff like that. That's what she liked, because she couldn't be just with a guy who was just a free spirit, but not have their stuff together. But at the same time, she was bored also by conservative guys, so it can be quite demanding, because they're very specific also sometimes about what they want. They like to dress up, they like to, I don't know, maybe do some kind of like microdosing and go to some kind of jungle and, you know, dance over there. They're very open to polyamory. They sometimes can be very open to same-sex relationships, which is experimentation, you know, with relationships. If this woman is bored with you, even if you're a nice guy, it's just not gonna work. Because I remember my friend also, so there was this amazing guy she met, and he was very conservative, more like a Capricorn archetype. And as much as like she tried to, I think, you know, because he was very nice, very good to her, she kind of like couldn't, because I could see she just wanted somebody as crazy and as exciting as her, because she was also in Aquarius herself. There is this desire to dress up, go on carnivals, travel, have fun. Sometimes there is this little bit of, I want to try all these things and then I'm gonna decide what I actually want. So if you are interested in a woman who has Eros and Aquarius, first of all, understand where she's coming from. It will of course be different. Let's say I'm describing like girl in her 20s, and let's say woman in her 40s already, who knows what she wants, already who has probably done all this experimentation and crazy stuff and maybe is more ready for something serious, or even in 30s, well, you already kind of still know yourself a little better. So it depends how old the woman is that you're interested in, how old are you watching this, because I think at different ages of course going to be different, but I feel like there's always going to be this desire to experiment still and to just explore things and not be so tightly defined by certain norms. They like to break the rules, Eros and Aquarius. They like to just do things sometimes to shock people a little bit. They like to, you know, I always think of Eros and Aquarius example as, you probably have seen Magic Mike with Channing Tatum. So remember there was Alex Pettyfier's character, the blonde guy, like the younger guy, and there was, I don't remember character's name, I remember actors, but you know how Alex Pettyfier's character was so much into this girl, I think it's Elvis Presley's granddaughter or something like that, the girl with like this pink hair and the pig in her apartment. You know how she was kind of crazy and weird and kinky and stuff? Like that is what I think of Eros and Aquarius. There is that very sexy energy about them in this different way. They're these ones with the blue hair or whatever, or the pink hair and stuff like that. And there is something about them that just, you know, catches your attention and you just want to try that. So that is my analysis of Eros and Aquarius woman. So again, if you're into this kind of woman, understand who she is and whether this is, you know, a journey you want to go onto, and you need to really show her that you're exciting, that you're fun, that you can also give her what she wants, whatever it is she wants, whether it's sexual experience, whether it's friendship that she craves, or whether it's openness to experiment with different things. You gotta really figure it out, and it's gonna of course depend person to person. Okay, now let's talk about a man who has Eros in a sign of Aquarius. So again, similarly to his female counterpart, this is someone who wants to try different things, to experiment. This is the kind of people who like festivals, who like to experience just maybe polyamorous experiences, at least when they're younger. This is the kind of people who just really want to play, want to have fun, want to do things that maybe are not the most common, weird toys, I don't know, all kind of experiences like that. They want to feel a sense of also friendship. There can be sometimes sex with friends, you know, or maybe it's just friends with benefits or something like that. They are very open-minded, and if you're a woman interested in such a man, you have to understand that maybe he's not the most conservative type or the most committed type. But again, it's hard to say just by Eros placement, because we need to see his whole chart. Of course, we need to see what his Venus is doing, what his Mars is doing, what his other placements are doing, what's happening with his moon, because of course not every Eros in Aquarius is going to be doing, I don't know, orgies and stuff like that, and not every Eros in Aquarius also is going to be a committed type. So there is going to be the difference. But of course there is the curiosity, since this placement, I find it very, you know, showing specifically what people are into sexually. This is the kind of person who can be very, very interested in maybe sex with more than one person at the same time. Exploring pornography, different things like this. Like, they might be very interested just to try things that are not such, you know, how to say, you know, not so basic. Like, they want to try more. They are very kinky. They like to, again, play, dress up. These are even men that I've noticed with this placement who like to put makeup on. So this could be a man whose sexuality sometimes is a little weird in a way. How to say weird? There's no such thing as weird necessarily. Everything is unique, right? But this is the kind of man who, let's say, could put heels on, or who could put makeup on, and he might not necessarily be gay, and you would think he would be, like, because okay, you're putting makeup on and this and this and that, but no, he might be totally straight, not into men at all, but he just likes to express himself like that. So this is a very interesting placement, and again, you gotta figure out this guy a little bit and see what else is happening in his chart, because one thing I can say, there is gonna be a lot of fun, excitement, again, breaking the rules, trying different things, experimenting with different things. Again, he could be totally committed, just maybe within your relationship he will like to really explore and try different things. Maybe he even has this side of him suppressed, so he might not even be so open with himself that, hey, I want to try all these crazy things, you know. But he might be also all the way out there and just going nuts and just doing different things, experimenting with things. It really depends, case-to-case basis. So if you watch this and let's say it's your husband's placement, you know, don't go into him like, oh, what did you want to do? What are you like fantasizing about? Because again, sometimes this side of us is even suppressed. It will really look at what his Mars is also doing, what his Venus is doing, because it's gonna show you a lot what else he's attracted to. This is the kind of man who also wants to feel liberated by the sexual experience, so he doesn't like to be too confined by, again, social norms or something like that. He wants to be liberated through sex. He wants to try different smells, maybe different, again, I said already, like different, you know, props and stuff like that. So, yep, this is one of the interesting placements. Now let's go to also the last one, to Eros and the sign of Pisces. Okay, now let's talk about Eros and Pisces, and let's start with a woman who has Eros and Pisces. What do you need to know? So if you're interested in a woman who has Eros and the sign of Pisces, well, this is the girl who is in love with the love itself. This is, you know, the unconditional love, spiritual love, 5D love, twin flame, soulmates, notebook, all these things. This is the kind of girl who wants to feel the passion, but more of a passion in this unconditional spiritual type of love realm. She wants to really feel that sex itself is a spiritual transcendental experience. She's turned on by, you don't have to be necessarily spiritual if you're a man interested in her, but she wants to see that there is a spiritual deep connection there, because if there is a spiritual deep connection, then she will be very interested in experimenting things, doing whatever it is you really want. Because if she thinks of you as your soulmate, she just wants to, there is a bit of the sacrifice energy, to be honest, with Pisces placement, where even if they are not necessarily into something, because they love you and they know that you are into something, they will do this because they love you so much, because they see you as their soulmate. These kind of women can be seeing all kind of different also erotic dreams. Imagination can be very rich with Eros and Pisces, but what I've seen, men with Eros and Pisces, which we'll get to in a minute, tend to act on their, you know, impulses, try to act on their whatever dreams, whatever fantasies they have, while women sometimes are not so eagerly expressive of what is their actual fantasies are. They kind of just trying usually to give more to their partner. They trying to see what their partner likes and what their partner wants. Don't be rude with this woman. Don't be aggressive with her. Don't be too, you know, how to say, like, be gentle with her, because she's a very gentle soul usually. Of course, again, depends what other aspects are there in the chart, but she's the kind of woman like again, there is going to be a lot dependent on whether she thinks of this as some kind of spiritual connection, deep connection, whether she thinks you are her soulmate, because if she thinks that is true, then she will just be all yours and she will immerse herself in whatever experience to just merge with you more, because for them spirituality and spiritual connection and just this mystical connection is the one that is so important. And they're gonna go, and there could be just like when they're with you in bed, they can just feel like they're in a different reality, in different dimension, wanting to escape this current reality somehow could be very present with them. Kind of similarly to Eros in Cancer as well, and even sometimes Eros in Libra, Eros in a sign of Pisces tends to not be able to distinguish affection and sexual attraction from love. To them, these things very often merge together, and love becomes affection and becomes the sexual attraction. So, you know, if you are, let's say, the kind of man who separates things, and for you sex is one thing, love is another thing, things like this, because there is archetypes like that, you have to be very gentle here and kind of double check with yourself whether you want to approach this kind of woman, because again, for her, love, you know, and sex is almost the same thing. Like, there cannot be necessarily love, like they cannot be necessarily, like if you have sex and if you have sexual connection, there must be love there, a connection there. So it's something I think very good to know when dating this woman. And now also for a man who has Eros in the sign of Pisces, if you're interested in such man, what's important to know is that, again, similarly to his female counterpart, this is the guy who has a lot of probably erotic dreams, erotic fantasies. He is very sensual, he is very deep. He's going to try to intuitively understand also what is it you are in, like what is it you want, what is it you crave, and he's going to try to give it to you. Unlike his female counterpart though, Eros in a sign of Pisces is the one who gonna have a lot of dreams and sexual fantasies, and he's gonna act on them. So I think that's the difference between a woman who has Eros in the sign of Pisces and a man who has Eros in the sign of Pisces. Woman tends to kind of keep those fantasies private and be a little bit shy sometimes to express them, while man is more actively trying to bring them to reality. This is the kind of man who values also a girl who has compassion, who is spiritual, who is a little bit sometimes not necessarily old-fashioned, but you know, this Cinderella, like this very kind, loving towards others. This is something that turns him on. Usually there is not so much crazy experimentation. However, I think actually Eros and Pisces could be one of the signs that is into BDSM. Again, on what level, I don't know. It would depend on their chart, but there is sometimes where they like to sacrifice themselves or even experience pain for partners, and they sometimes tend to like also certain submission from their partner as well. But it's usually not a very hardcore, I would say, type. It would be something a little bit more mild, more romantic, maybe more watered down, unless there's other aspects in their chart. But there is this really that desire to just submit themselves to another person and just make them happy, and I don't even know what's another word here, almost like even sacrifice part of self for that magical romantic love experience. So if you're a woman interested in a man who has Eros and Pisces, again, don't be too much into his face, be more mysterious, be more romantic. This is the kind of man who values a little bit of this mystery where he cannot quite figure you out. He needs to be able to fantasize about you, like he saw you maybe a few times and he needs to develop some kind of fantasy, some kind of dream about you. There can be an element of illusion present, but if you are too much straightforward with him or too much even near him, it might not work. It's almost like a good tactic is to withdraw yourself, to keep him, basically to make him still crave you and, you know, kind of like fantasize about you, imagine things with you, not be able to fully figure you out. And this is what's gonna draw such man in. Overall, again, a sexual experience and sensual and love experience can be amazing with them. There is a lot of dreamy energy, a lot of fantasy, imaginations. They might not be always super straightforward in telling you what they want. However, comparing to their female counterpart, they are still a little bit more vocal and they try to bring their dreams and ideas to reality a little bit more. They really want to make you feel good as well. For them, seeing you happy, wow, it's like mission accomplished pretty much. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what did you think about this new series. I'm really excited to bring you more of this astrological experiences, astrological topics. So let me know in the comments below whether you dated somebody with this placement, what the experiences were like. Of course, it's YouTube, so, you know, don't write anything vulgar or too kind of, you know, keep it like, you know, friendly, PG friendly or whatever. So, but again, this is more about psychology rather about something very specific. So do you think that these archetypes make sense? How does it work in your chart? What other topics of astrology are you interested to hear and learn more about? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and share this video with your friends. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all so much, and we're gonna talk soon. Bye bye.